Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience. From Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, Canada, I welcome all of you in today's special Peace Days 2020 Rotary session. And we have a wonderful event today, as you must have gathered information from our posters and websites. We are going to screen the film Exiled, and which was produced and directed, created by Shahida Tulaganova from London, UK. Before we go into the event, let me do our traditional acknowledgement that we always do. The Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada is located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And so, ladies and gentlemen, a brief background about Rohingya crisis and Conflict and Resilience Research Institute's activities. We have started research on Rohingya crisis from 2018. Our main focus is to understand the root causes of the conflict and also advocate the conflict transformation through peace building avenues. Our major research work was published from Lexington Books in January 2020, and it is available in all the platforms. Today, we are very proud to be a part of Winnipeg Rotary Peace Days 2020 festival, which showcases number of peace building activities undertaken globally through various parties. And within the framework of Winnipeg Rotary Peace Days 2020 and Montreal Peace Days event, this particular film is being screened. Today, we are joined in the panel by the director of the film, Shahida Tulaganova from London, UK, and our diaspora lead, Mr. Rice Tinbong from Ottawa. Rice, welcome, and thank you very much for joining in. And today, we also have with us our Director, Research and Communication, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin, and he's going to speak a few words before we begin. And about the activities of Peace Days 2020, this is conceived from Winnipeg Rotary Peace Builder Club Committee, and this is the 10th year of this committee's activities, and it organizes Peace Days events each year. And this year is particularly important because of the COVID-19 impact, and most of the events are virtually organized. And we are very proud to have the director and the film and the diaspora joining today, this morning, to pursue one of the most important, I would say, topics in human history, i.e. the genocide of Rohingyas. So without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin to have a brief remarks on the event and its significance. And then I will welcome Rice to have a couple of brief remarks as well, and followed by our director and our main person today in the event, Shahida. So, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kausar. Good morning, dear audiences and our panelists. It is a grand day for us, for sure, because the Rotary International, we are very grateful to Rotary International and Rotary Winnipeg for organizing this event. This event is essential in different respects. My understanding is that the Rohingyas need to have a lot of attention from different directions, not only in research or in talking. We need visual documentation as well. And this is very important, especially at this moment, because they don't have a script. They are using different languages. And when they are expelled from their own territory, own country, own native land, they're even in a greater danger of losing their culture and heritage. So this is one important aspect. And the human rights issue is a constant issue there. We can't ignore that. And that will be built in different creative activities. So not only movies, we are actually thinking about having other platform, other avenues, and other cultural events as well, like films, photography, painting, whatever way we can portray their lifestyle, livelihood, and their present situation there is very essential at this moment, because we don't want to lose the global attention on them. It is very essential at this moment. So we are trying our best to keep the topic uh, in tune all the time, especially to penetrate the focus and attention of the international communities to take proper action to retain human rights and dignity of human beings. That's the most important part of it. And in doing that, I also um our organization Creek is trying to assemble as many as visual documentation of the Rohingya issues as possible. Today, I am very honored to welcome Shahida, the director of the film Exiled. I watched the movie once before on Al Jazeera, but today will be a special day for us because we are presenting it for a cause, a special cause. And hopefully the event will go fine and our audiences will enjoy, not only they enjoy the movie, but it will be thought provoking for most of us who will be thinking ahead of time about the Rohingyas and their plights and a greater solution for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilal. Mr. Rice, if you kindly put up your remarks now. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful event. It is a very creative and effective way of keeping the matter alive, just like Dr. Hilal was mentioning. And it's not only based on seminars and dialogues, but also through a film screening, which has done extensive research not only at the refugee camps but also in Myanmar. It is very timely that you are releasing or you're doing this event, because it was just last week that we've had developments on Myanmar's military all over, all over the human rights world. For those of us who know about it, I mean, to touch upon them very briefly, we've had two defaulters from Tatmadaw saying what they directly received from the chain of command, including statements such as "kill all Kalars, including babies." There was another one who said, "I was doing sentry duty so that my seniors could do the rapes." So, in light of this, the movie is going to show actually Shahida's fantastic work. Is going to show, things coming out from the horse's mouth, to put it that way, from a senior official in the Myanmar's armed forces. Also, we had another presentation, another report released from Amnesty. As a matter of fact, it was work done by a group called Justice for Myanmar, where it divulged as much as $18 billion in the last 20 years of revenues coming from international conglomerates, international corporations investing into Myanmar's Economic Holdings Limited. It's a conglomerate where a huge portion of dividends go out to military officers, and of course the military units that are conducting the genocide. So very timely for screening this film. I thank you for it. And once again, like Dr. Hilal said, it's about keeping the matter alive, and it's about keeping the matter in spotlight. I would also not deviate from the needs on the grounds in Bangladesh. We have focus on the root cause, which is extremely essential, which is Myanmar. But let us not forget there are 1.3 million people living in refugee camps. Funding is dying, and it's highly crucial that the international community supports Bangladesh in supporting my people. Otherwise, it's up to Bangladesh, that has already done so much tremendously to support us. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much once again, and I'll pass it back to you, Kausar.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. And I think as I invite our director and our chief guest in today's event, Shahida, into the floor, let me conclude by saying that, as I want to echo with Rice's comments, that those who are listening today, please do remember Rohingya brothers and sisters are spread over 8 to 9 countries in the world. and they are living. All of them are living in a desperate situation in the camps. So our greatest appeal through today's event is that while the justice and accountability takes its own course in time, please do not forget the conditions of the Rohingya brothers and sisters in your territories, in your homeland. And it is you, the countries where you have sheltered, you have given them the place to stay and live. Please do not forget that they have come voluntarily. They were forced out of their lands. They were persecuted, and that is why they had no other option to seek refuge in your territory. And with special emphasis, I would like to call upon the government of Malaysia just to reconsider your policies and your stances over these past couple of months, because we are saddened of the actions that the government has adopted with regards to giving shelter to fleeing and persecuted Rohingyas. So likewise, we are appealing from Conflict and Resilience Research Institute in Canada, all those host countries to kindly have patience and allow the humanitarian needs to be going on to the same level that you started providing in the beginning of the last Exodus. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome our director Shahida Tulaganova, who's going to tell her stories and the stories of the film, and then we'll switch to the main screening. Until then, thank you very much. Stay well.
Thank you, Kausir. Thank you, and very nice to meet you, Dr. Hilal. Hello, Race. Many people ask me why I started working on this film. It's an independent film. It wasn't commissioned by anyone. I started working on it in 2016 when I was working still in the news, and Rohingya issue was popping in and out since 2012 after this big fires were happening in Rakhine State. And I kind of was looking at this issue thinking, you cannot report about it every now and then. You really have to make people understand what is the story behind. South Asia is not so very well reported in Western media networks, let alone there are not that many films coming out of the area. Rohingya issue is extremely complicated. Myanmar is a very complicated country. So I was like, it's time to explain the story of these people and create some sort of a postcard so anyone who can watch the film understands what is the issue there. So that was the purpose of the film. And to understand, to make people understand what is going on, it was important to talk to the Rohingya and to the Myanmar officials about, the problem. So I set off to work on this film, which actually was a quite traumatic and at the same time exciting and extremely difficult story. But it happened, and I'm very glad that one of my intentions for this film was to make sure that whoever will watch it understand that this is a case of a genocide. It's not a case of some sporadic, occasional violence. It is a continuous state-planned policy of extermination of one ethnic minority by the Burmese government and the military. And I think it's absolutely clear in the film. I was quite lucky because in Myanmar, I was able to talk to what we call him a chief mastermind of the policy of genocide against Rohingya, General Kinyu, who was for over 25 years, one of the most feared people in the country. He was chief of military intelligence, but his so-called claim to fame when it comes to the Rohingya issue was a creation of this special division of border troops, which effectively reminded me that the Nazi created SS units, which were the squads for extermination of Jewish people. So that was the creation of General Kim knew. So he was talking a lot about it. And I realized we spent like about 3 hours, and that was the only television interview he has ever done in his life, that he unfortunately has firm belief that the Rohingya do not belong to Myanmar. He never really called the Rohingya, he called them the Muslims, which is to me a very generic way. You know, you can be religious, your religion can be Muslim, but you have your own ethnic identity. Like you cannot, you know, I'm Uzbek, but I'm Muslim too. But you know what, effectively, you know, comprise me is like my ethnic identity. So you can't take this out. You can't take the name out of the nation and call them some generic, you know, ethnic, religious identification. And I think that was my grandmother went through Second World War. She was from western part of Russia. And she was telling me stories about how they were hiding from the Nazi troops when they occupied that part of what is effectively now Belarusia. And how the Germans, the Nazis, were hovering people together in one particular place and were burning the houses of the whole villages. And when you look at the story of the Rohingya, how gradually they were exterminated in the territory of Myanmar, that's exactly the same pattern of behavior of the Burmese troops. Moreover, I was shocked to see that a Nazi swastika, as well as Hitler and his inner circle people, are extremely popular in Myanmar. I saw the books, the swastika, even in the monasteries of the monks. Unfortunately, we couldn't speak to, oh God, what's the horrible monk's name? He was in the news all the time. The one who said, yeah, that's the one. Sorry. Yeah, but he's equally a dreadful, another militarized, radical, nationalist, extremist monk. And it was and I saw swastikas. I was like, okay, now I see what you're talking about here. So, but what saddened me most is that propaganda, exactly like the Goebbels propaganda in Nazi Germany, worked so well that in a country which is already so significantly diverse in ethnic groups, the army created one particular enemy and started this state organized propaganda machine, which is now, unfortunately, we have internet, dwelled on Facebook, and created even more hatred. That these monks were allowed, with huge millions of followers, were allowed to say unspeakable in 21st century things. And it was never sanctioned or never reprimanded by anyone up until the certain point when they really went overboard. And the propaganda works so well that ordinary people in Myanmar who kind of don't know what the hell is going on, they believe that the Rohingya don't belong to Myanmar. They believe that there's some Bengali migrants, and they call them. So my film shows that this is not true. They always been part of Myanmar. They had registration documents, they had birth certificates up until a certain point when in 1978, the government decided to get rid of them, you know, and that's what it's all about. For whatever reason, being Muslim is not a good thing in Myanmar, and is a genuine hatred towards Muslims in this country. So yeah, and I hope I managed to complete what I was aspiring to, is to show the story from all the way from the beginning of creation of when it was created as Burma up until the final exodus in 2017, which was, even though the Burmese army and military wanted to call the final solution, they failed. it's not the final solution, because the final solution is achieved when you exterminate all people. What they did, they just got rid of them. And my particular worry about all this 200,000 or 300,000 Rohingya left in Rakhine State who live in absolute ghetto conditions. They're not registered. They don't have birth certificates. They're not allowed to marry. They don't allowed to leave those areas, which is absolutely horrific thing. Imagine being a prisoner in your own home, and this is what these people are going through. And unfortunately, because Myanmar doesn't allow a lot of international organizations, let alone journalists, to approach those ghettos, we don't know what the real situation is. And, you know, especially when it comes to healthcare and education. So these people are of particular concern. And of course, having over 1 million refugees in Bangladesh is not a solution to any problem. I want to take this opportunity and say a big thank you to the government of Bangladesh to take so many people, because when I try to explain the Rohingya issue to people in the West, they take it for granted that Bangladesh opened its borders and allowed all these people in. Remember the refugee crisis in Europe back in 2015, how much outcry was created in countries like Czech Republic and Poland, in Latvia, Lithuania, when they were, had to take about 500 refugees. 500. This country opened its gates to over 1 million. And people don't understand that you have to take responsibility for these people. You have to feed them. You have to make sure there is no crime. It's bloody difficult job. So, I don't think that Bangladesh is credited enough for the efforts to keep so many people over there for already, 3 years? And the problem I don't see any solution happening anytime soon. So we have in that camp people who ran away from Myanmar in 1992, people who were born in that camp, and that camp keeps expanding through decades, and nobody's doing anything about it. So now we're facing the situation when we have a third generation being born in the camp. This is scandalous. This should never happen. This should be stopped as much as possible. So all this international talk about recognition of genocide, non-recognition of genocide, sort the bloody problem out. And I agree with Reyes. Sanction those countries who do business with Myanmar. Sanction them. Sanction those corporations who invest in Myanmar. It shouldn't happen. These people have to go back home, and there's no other solution. You cannot evacuate these people anywhere else. There's too many. They have to go home, and they genuinely want to go home. Very simple. They're not going to be some kind of economic migrants. They have their places, and this should be respected. And I think the stories of the Rohingya refugees from the camp, even though my colleagues did a lot of work in media in telling the stories, it's not enough. We hear only about the tremendous suffering and trauma these people went through, but we don't hear much about everyday problems and obstacles they face. There are no schools, very little access to education. The internet gets shutting down every now and then. There's a lot of psychological issues like huge depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, which is not being taken care of, especially when we talk about rape victims. And I would suspect that most women in the camp were gang raped at a certain stage, given the situation they were coming from, which actually horrified me tremendously. And this issues has to be addressed, because traumatized mother will raise traumatized children, and psychological aspect of situation in the camp should be addressed, because people need to see hope. And at the moment, there is no hope.
Thank you, Shaida, for your, I would say, very heart-rending, introspective, and your observations on the crisis. And thank you also sharing your work with us. We are immensely benefited and proud to showcase your work through this platform. And just before we begin screening the film, dear audience, this is very important issue, possibly one of the most important issue in this century. We're talking about displacement in millions, in millions. And as you have heard directly from Shahida's work and her experience working on it, we are looking forward for conflict transformation, as I said. And dear audience, if you have any scope to look into our work, our research, the book was published, and we have written extensively on the aspects of faith-based violence. And especially, if you remember, Shahida was referring to a monk who was titled in the Time magazine as Buddhist Bin Laden. That was the exact title of the Time magazine, and his name is Ashin Viratu. And his whole movement, which they call Ma Ba Tha, and it has transformed to a new movement now, is instrumental in shaping public opinion against Rohingyas, and especially after 2012 riot in Sitwe. And we have documented all these things in our book, and we have categorically shown how Facebook and WhatsApp were instrumental in mobilizing mobs against Rohingyas, and that cost life of more than 2,000 Rohingyas in the aftermath of 2012 riot. So through our platform today, we are once again appealing Facebook and other social media platform to be more cautious in content moderation, and because these can be used for genocide and incite straight violence, and that costs life, and there is no doubt in it. And here is the case, and you will have all these documents in our book. Second thing, before I start the film screening, we are very proud because I was and Dr. Halal, we were all born and raised in Bangladesh. We know this plight for quite some time. And now we live and work in Canada. We are very proud to share with you that our country, Canada, has stepped up quite a while. And you have heard that Canada is going to support the case in the ICJ with Gambia. And in this regard, ladies and gentlemen, please tune in. Two of our webinars are upcoming with very important personalities in Canada. On 24th of September, we are screening a whole session with Senator Marilu McFadden, and she's going to talk about Canada's coming role in supporting the case in ICJ. And also on 23rd September, please keep an eye in our website. We are going to talk with the renowned genocide prosecutor and scholar, Professor Dr. Payam Akavan, and he's going to talk about how does he see the justice coming for Rohingya in the future. So please tune in for these two reasons. And last but not the least, let me also echo with Shahida's observation that Bangladesh has been less recognized for this enormous tasking that it has somehow inherited since 2017. Mr. Rice is aware, those who have gone back to the refugee camps, we all are aware the enormous challenge Bangladesh is undergoing hosting population. And many things are untold and unsung, as Shahida rightly gave us a comparison that just think when due to Syrian crisis, people came to European shores, how many of the countries reacted just not to take 500 people. And think about Bangladesh, it has warm-heartedly embraced and welcomed 1.3 million now to the latest count people. And through this platform, you also appeal world community, international community, the way you frame the community itself, to look into this matter, support these host countries, not only Bangladesh, all the host countries, so that our Rohingya brothers and sisters can leave before they go back to Myanmar. And also the final point is repatriation is the only solution that we argue, we advocate. Repatriation has to be done. And the question is how and who's going to do it? And this is the big question that we leave the audience with today. But mind you, without repatriation, this resolution can never happen. And Myanmar has to be forced. There is no other way. As Shahida again rightly said, recognition of genocide, accountability, these are one aspect of the justice. But the biggest aspect and only aspect of justice is to ensure that Rohingya go back with safety and dignity to their homeland. So with this, I will kind of once again acknowledge Shahida's brilliant work in showcasing this plight today. And Mr. Rice, I would say he's doing a tremendous work mobilizing people from Ottawa. Thank you, Mr. Rice. And he's a steadfast supporter of Creek since his beginning. We do appreciate whenever we call him, and he is right there with us. And we do appreciate your support, sir. Absolutely. And with this, let me switch to the screening. And ladies and gentlemen, please drop us a line. You know all the actors today, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin and Dr. Shahida here and Rice. You have our contact addresses. Please drop us a line. Your ideas, your support matters. Thank you so much for staying with us so far. Let's go to the film now.
Military dio duade roivadun tarvase goli foila chutur gole sajo.
Hoje bade yang oshurumuya. Oshurumuya hoje bade rakno gidi gale.